really happy about it. If you haven't seen the announcement, we are getting Peter Fortunato out here next year to do a 2-day class. So, if you're not familiar with Peter Fortunato, I would say go YouTube him or Google him, but you're not really going to find much because he doesn't let anything get recorded. So if you want to see Peter Fortunato talk, he's basically the godfather of creative financing. Anytime you go to these meetings, you'll hear his name, I promise you. He hasn't taught out here since like 2018, I believe. Most of the time he does not leave Florida for anything for classes. So this is really, really special for us to be able to get him out here for a 2-day class. It's going to be $597 for general admission. Members are getting $100 off. Also, if you are a member and you're in the Facebook group, right now there's pre-registration open with a $50 off extra code that is posted in the Facebook group. So if you want to come to that class and get $150 off the regular admission and you're a member, come check it out. You can look for that code. There's already, we've had it posted for like 5 days, there's already 15 tickets gone. So I fully expect that event to be sold out by January. So if you want a ticket, don't wait. What's that? What classes are you teaching? Well, Pete's creative finance guy, so it's probably going to be about notes and general creative financing. I don't really know what the market's going to look like in March though, so it's probably going to be something very relevant and very worth seeing.
How to get a bank loan?
How to become the bank? It's basically it. So, all right. And if you would like to become a member and get $100 off that class, get into the Mission Inn cheaper, get into all events for free, get a Facebook, access to the Facebook group, and a whole bunch of other benefits, you can become a member at ieric.org. It's $25 a month. All right? With that, let's bring up Kristi. So we're going to, unless Kristi wants to do it a little differently, come on in the box with me. Hi, Diane.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Unless you want to do it a little different way, we'll hold questions to the end. We'll do like, we'll give like 2 questions for you before we go to Evan.
Okay.
And then we'll do a Q&A with everybody up here at the very end. Okay? And just give me a turn this mic off.
Okay, right on. I can put it up here. All right, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I hope I can give you something valuable tonight. I think I have about 20 minutes, and I'm much better with Q&A, so I can get a sense of what you're looking to gain, and I try to share some information. I moved to California actually in 2006, but it took me 2 years to go through immigration, which is a 2-beer story. We won't get into that tonight. But by 2008, I was legally living here and working here and starting a fix and flip business. I've bought about 250 houses. I've kept a handful of those as rentals and built ADUs on those properties, so I'm going to talk about that tonight. Hi. One of the things they wanted me to start with tonight was market updates. So did a ton of research, watched all the news, which we all know is so accurate, and I just read some headlines, and I came to the conclusion that I don't care what the market's doing. I don't know about you guys, but I get so overwhelmed with just news and media in general. And I've kind of had to just shut some of that off because you just don't even know where. I mean, you know what happened with COVID, same thing. You're just like bombarded with all this stuff. You think the world's about to end. So I thought, okay, and I do listen to some podcasts and some economics. In fact, I'll give you a name right now of one guy I listen to, and it's George Gammon. He's got a great podcast on, I think he's on Spotify too. George Gammon, Gammon, yeah. He's a macroeconomist, and again, it doesn't matter who you listen to, you're going to end up with 10 different opinions on where the market's going right now. So, but we all know that when we drive to the gas station, how much it costs now to put gas in our cars. So what I decided to do when I thought about thinking about the market and the current state we're in is trying to figure out what can I do to just kind of take small steps to survive what we're currently going through, okay? I'm not gonna cancel my wine memberships. I'm just not gonna decrease that expense. But I do wanna try to save in other areas, and I wanna be smart with how I'm spending money. I went to the Masters Real Estate, I don't even know what month we're in. What's the one we just recently went to? The Financial Freedom Principles. Okay, this is a class put on by Gary Johnston. Yeah, so we just went to that one, and I'm sorry, the Masters of Real Estate is coming up in November. These are great classes. I don't make any money off these, but I'm just telling you about them in case you want to learn and network and try to, understand what other investors are doing. One tip they gave from that a couple of months ago was a challenge. Figure out how you can save $20 a day. So I don't know, I see a couple of you here that were in that class, if you've actually stuck to that. But I think about that all the time, and not to be cheap, but you want to just think about that in a market like we're in right now. I think that's important. I also look back in time, and there was a recession in the 80s, okay? My parents lived through that, so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna go, instead of trying to figure out what to do now, go back and ask what they did. They already been there, done that, went through that. So has anybody read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Yeah, so my parents would be considered the poor dad of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Very conservative, very, not risk takers at all. And yet, I never felt as a kid that, maybe we didn't have money, but I never noticed it, or I never felt that. So when I asked them, well, what did you do? And they just gave me a simple answer. Just, they lived within their means. We still went on camping trips, and we had one of those old pop-up tent, trailer type where, Canada, it rains all the time, so my dad would be out there cursing in the rain trying to get this thing up. But it was fun, I had a good childhood, but I always remember them living within their means. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad went to work, and somehow we still had money. And when I look at them now, they're in their early 70s, they have their home paid off. And a lot of the people they hang around with, they're in their early to mid 70s, don't, if you can believe it. So, that's one simple thing that we can do. And some of these gurus will say, always have a mortgage and always have leverage. Well, if I have to tell you what I feel, then it's have at least your personal residence paid off. Because I see how that's worked well for my parents who went through that recession. All right, so there's other simple things you can do, like have cash, right? Because we know cash is king, and you'll get this pretty much from anybody right now, is to try to save a little bit of cash. Okay, I need to do a better job of that myself, but it's one thing you should do. And I think one important thing that I've been doing over the last couple of years, we've already been in this uncertainty for the last couple of years, is just going through your existing situation, your existing lifestyle, your existing portfolio if you have a few rentals. There's stuff that you can do that you don't realize until you start actually looking at it. So this is a good time to talk about ADUs. So I think ADUs came out in 2016 or 17. I didn't find out about them until 2018. And I thought basically you can now have 2 units on one R1 single family zone property. So basically you're creating a duplex on any single family zone property. And so I was flipping a bunch of houses at that time, and I thought, okay, well, it's hard to make anything cash flow in Orange County with a single family house. But when I was doing the renovation, I thought, why not stick an ADU on these properties? And now with the increased rent I can get from the ADU with a relatively lower cost, back then it was, now they cash flow. And so going through my current inventory, which is just a handful of rentals, so I have single family homes in North Orange County, South LA County, so kind of Long Beach, Bellflower, Garden Grove, that sort of area. Even now, I'm finding opportunities that I can do with those properties. So I went over to my rental in Garden Grove, and I'm like, okay, I already have an ADU here, but the you can now have junior ADUs. So I look at that attached garage, I'm like, that's my next project. So I've got an architect working on that. Technically, so I don't know how much information you want me to get in on ADUs. Does anybody have an interest? I'm hearing a little bit more. Okay. I've got to remember all the rules. I will say that they are getting easier. I wouldn't say easier. The state is making them easier to build, in theory. For example, in 2018, when I started building, you actually had to, and I didn't know this at the time, you had to sign and notarize and record a covenant saying you were going to live in either the main house or the ADU. Okay, well, I was already building 5, and I thought, I'm going to live in 5 different locations. So, but anyway, I did a lot of workarounds and got around that. Okay, but now they did away with that rule a couple of years ago. You also had to have a minimum lot square footage back then. Okay, now you don't have to have any minimum lot square footage, and it's different city by city. Usually if you go to the city websites, you can find their specific ADU rules on a specific city website. Okay, so junior ADU, technically now, as of now, you have to be living in either the junior, the ADU, or the main house. Okay, well.
Kristi, can you turn it up?
Oh, do I keep
Can you
moving
guys hear
around?
her okay? I think that's better. It's a bit better. Louder.
There. How's that? So, am I going to build junior ADUs anyway? Yeah. You still want to do. You want to do it if it's appropriate. You don't want to just like have, a property with just all these tenants if it doesn't really make sense. But the one in Garden Grove, the way the property's situated, I wish I had brought some pictures to you guys, but the attached garage is such that you can enter it, it's completely separate, it can have its own separate yard space. That's important to the city planners. Usually they want to see separate yard space now for the ADUs and the juniors. But I can create that easily without it being a huge impact to the neighborhood. In fact, I'm going to widen the driveway so I can fit a couple more cars in there, so it's not as parking impacted in that area, which it's not anyway, but I don't want to be, you're causing too many cars on the street here. So I'm doing that. But I would say for you, just look at your existing inventory. You'd be surprised what you can find. Maybe it's a simple thing like trying to get an expense lowered. There's some rebates. Actually, there's rebates for ADUs right now. And that's a program I need to look into myself. If anybody has the website, we can make note of it, and I'll get it to you later. So that's a way you can get some money. I'm just going through, like I pay for internet on one property because I run it as an Airbnb. Okay, I was able to save about $60 just by changing a plan on that. So just little things, like just look at your existing portfolio and just see how you can kind of trim it down a little bit.
60 a month.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Just think about how to save money on anything, utilities or like internet. I called the internet company and was able to save about $60 a month just by, taking a look. Review your existing portfolio. That's the point. Gosh, there's so much more ADUs. Maybe I'll save some more ADU information for the Q&A. Let me touch on Airbnbs really quickly. The cities are really not your friend when it comes to like having full control of what you want to do with your private property these days. However, I still run some Airbnbs. They are very profitable, but I do not rely on that income solely to just in case the city decides they don't want to allow Airbnb short-term rentals anymore. I did discover a little niche. If you have ADU, so technically you're not allowed to short-term rental an ADU, but you can still put it on Airbnb if you do a 30-day minimum. So a couple of them in my area I've furnished. So it's completely furnished. I put up on Airbnb and promoted through traveling nurses. There's Furnished Finder, if you know this website. And I've been getting stays of anywhere from 1 month. I don't get many of those, but usually 2 or 3 months, all the way up to 5 or 6 months. And it's people coming to town that don't want to have to buy furniture and do all that. They just want to move in and everything's ready to go. And my 1-bedroom ADUs in my little pocket are going for $2,900 a month right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I make a premium. I would say I make a premium on the rent, and I get a better tenant as well. And at some point I may get tired of doing that because you still have to go over there and do the turnover. You don't just rely on the cleaner to do that. You have to sort of be present and do that. But so far right now it's worth it. If you can find a city that will allow Airbnbs, so the short term, less than 30 days, those can be very profitable. And I don't know what areas out here it would work well in. Just do a little bit of research. The one that I've got that's close to Disneyland does very well. And as a matter of fact, last night I added up my income for October, and just on the main house, it's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. I gross over 11,000 just on that main house. And I've got an ADU and a junior ADU on the property. So it's really good money. My expenses on that, my mortgage and taxes and insurance payment are $3,400. Probably my the utilities and the internet is probably another, call it $500 or $600. So anyway, consider that, because you might not want to do that forever, but it is a nice way of just bringing in some cash flow. So I'm actually sort of living part-time in one of the ADUs on that property. So the other one I get $2,000 a month, which is way under market. I could get $2,900 for that as well. But that's a real life example of house hacking or whatever they call it these days. I've really maxed out that property, and it's well kept up though. It's not just like a crazy just people coming and going, but it's well managed. Let's put it that way. And I would suggest that for you if you're considering something like that, to really keep that well managed. But yeah, check with the cities. Check with the cities, and even if they allow it, just know that someday they might not allow it, and then from there you're going to have to rent, a furnished house in some other manner. It's harder to rent month to month on a furnished house. An ADU is one thing. They're small, they're 1 bedroom, but a 4-bedroom house, it's a little tougher to really. You could get it rented, but usually a tenant wanting to rent a 4-bedroom house has all their own furnishings. But for now it works. City of Long Beach still has permits available if anybody's interested in that city. And I'm surprised, because a couple years ago they had allowed 900 or something like that, and I've got a rental in Long Beach, and I thought I'm just going to pay for a permit just to have, because once they're gone, they're gone. And I called because I have another potential rental in Long Beach that is not, that I may be turning into an Airbnb, so they still have permits available. So just check.
There's a limited number of permits?
There's a limited number, yeah. Mind you, they take almost 10% TOT tax, or what do they call that, transit occupancy tax or whatever. So they have their hand out, but anyway, still is a profitable thing to do. An opportunity I think you're going to see, actually I'm already seeing it, is seller financing deals. So if you're just getting started, or even if you've been in business for a while and maybe you already have enough rentals but you're bored and you want to start making phone calls, this can be done right now. I almost did it, and then somebody came in with another cash offer, so I wasn't able to do it. But sellers right now, have you noticed, there's a ton of open houses on the market. So all you gotta do if you're getting started is start going to some of those open houses. Look at the house, seeing if that's a property that you can see potential with, either for adding an ADU on there, or maybe there's an existing structure that could be converted into ADU. Keep in mind, converting existing structure is always going to be cheaper than building from scratch. So if you have a garage that you can convert that's a higher and better use to be used as a rental unit versus keeping it as a garage, then that's going to be cheaper than building an ADU from scratch in the backyard. But go to the open houses, start looking at these properties. Any property that's been on the market 3 to 4 weeks, you know is sitting there. And that's not the way it used to be 6 months ago. So those agents right now are happy to get that phone call. And some of them are even becoming a little more knowledgeable on what seller financing means. Not all of them know what that means. So if you call them, say, you know, is your seller willing to carry? And maybe you do a little bit of research first. You find out which ones are owned free and clear. That way, yeah, you might want to have a little bit of cash as a down payment because that realtor is going to want to make their commission and you have to cover closing costs. Other than that, that seller could carry the paper for you at a monthly payment that makes sense for you. So that's, in my mind, if I get through the last few ADUs and another property I have that I'm trying to deal with right now, then that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in this market. So if you are flipping, you should be concerned about what the market's going to do. I would not be opposed to still buying properties. My specialty is hoarder houses. Those aren't for the faint of heart. I would not suggest. You know, and I'm looking for 50% off right now. There's no way I'm going to be paying. And the thing is if you go into a house and you offer 50% off and it only needs paint and carpet, you know, that's not really a good deal for the seller, and you're probably not going to get that deal, even in today's market. But with a hoarder house, I mean, I'm looking at one right now in Garden Grove, and it's at least a 6-figure cleanup. It's probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen. I've seen them all. It's just, there's literally this much space between the top of the hoard and the ceiling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty severe. So I would say $100 grand just with that, just with the cleanup, not even the remodel. So yeah, I want 50% off right now. That's where I'm buying with my flips. So, but I'm not super anxious to run out there and get those. And if I do get one, I want to make sure that if I get stuck with that as a rental, if it doesn't sell in 6 months' time, once I have that fixed up, that there's a way for me to keep that property and make it profitable as a rental. Biggest challenge with that is trying to find loans right now. There's still a lot of loans out there, but it's, I don't know, it's sort of weird. It's tightening a little bit. Things are changing a little bit. So what do you think you might be able to get today for a rental loan? Could be vastly different 6 months from now. So just know that. You might want to have a couple different strategies just to get that right loan. Normally when you're buying a flip property, you're buying it with hard money, right? With the anticipation of flipping that in a year. If you don't get it flipped, you don't really want hard money on a rental. It's going to be really hard to pencil. So you want a way to try to refinance that out. So just have a couple ideas in mind for refinance. How am I doing, Rich?
You're good. You want to stop and take a couple questions?
Yeah, I would say, just to wrap up, just keep coming to meetings like this, network, learn as much as you can. When I was starting in 2008, I didn't know one person. I think Karen was one of the first ones I met here. But I used to do all the things I'm telling you. I would go to open houses just to meet agents. Don't bombard them at the open house. Get their number, follow up on Monday morning. You want them to be doing their job at their open house and trying to sell that house. Follow up with them Monday morning. And that's a great way to get started. I really think seller financing is the way to go. So yeah, maybe, did you say a couple questions then?
Yeah, let's take one question and then we'll wrap your hands up first.
Okay.
On the ADU, or on the unit you're making $2,900, first of all, what's the size on it? Like, when you get the back status, and what would rent be in the area for a long-term rental? We'd like to see what the premium is.
Yeah, so he's just asking what the rents are. So it's in Garden Grove. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, ADU, detached. Most of them I build detached. It's 620 square feet. If the layout had been better, I would have stuck 2 bedrooms in, but I don't recommend furnishing the 2 bedrooms. Because usually it's just somebody coming from town, like some one person or a couple at max needing the furnished. So they don't need 2 bedrooms for that. Definitely have a workspace. To long-term rent, maybe 2,500 unfurnished. It would probably be up to by now. I also like the better quality tenant I'm getting with the furnished. It just seems like they're just there to work, do their internship or whatever they're doing, and then, you know, they leave it and it's in pretty good shape in 3 months' time, and then I get the next one in.
Okay, yeah.
We'll do it after? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Kristi. I could listen to her talk for hours just about ADUs and house hacking, because that's what I'm doing. So, all right, next up, we're going to bring up Mr. Evan Brown. What do you guys see up here? All right. So if you guys aren't familiar with Evan, Evan is a club mentor, as well as my mentor, as well as my dad. So give him a round of applause.
Everyone hear me? Everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. My voice does crack. It goes up and down. It's all over the place, just the way it is. I always joke I'm going through puberty still, sorry. But it's true, my voice will do it. So sorry if I get a little loud or animated and then get a little quiet. So if I get too quiet, let me know. First of all, I wanted to let you know I met Kristi last year at Masters of Real Estate. I saw that she was one of the special guest speakers. And Rich had arranged for some of us to go out to dinner the night before from the club, and we were able to hang out a little bit. And I said, Kristi, I came all the way from SoCal just to listen to you. And she's like, oh God, now I've got pressure on. But it was amazing. And one thing she said, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I noticed this is something that we do, and I just underlined everything, is she said at the next morning, was that in so many years, I forget it, in 4 or 5, 6 years, she was doing like no advertising. Everything was organic leads. She's nodding. Everything was from her relationships that she had set up that were feeding her organically. She wasn't out there pounding the phones. She wasn't out there running tons of ads. She wasn't doing all that by just organically. That type of advertising, that type of networking will never go out of style. There's nothing wrong with feeding the beast and the machine and advertising, driving for dollars, we do it, etc. But at the same time, groups like this and your local agents and your friends and your family, that is something that just needs to be said, especially when it gets extra crazy like what's going on right now. Okay, so when she said that, it just kind of underlined everything for me again and went, all right, we're gonna just keep doing that. So right now, there's a lot of trepidation. There's a lot of people out there going, what's going on? Is the market going up? Market going down? Anybody know? I'd like some answers. You know, Andy's raising his hand. Yeah.
I guarantee it's going to go 1 of 3 ways.
Okay, right. But that's the thing. What are we doing? And so that's why we're here. Well, I have some little cheat sheets because there's some statistics that I want to get in there. But one of the things you got to realize is that the last several years, this country's been hit by a lot of different things. Okay, we had a crazy election, we had COVID, we actually had people, a government telling you, don't go to work, but you can go to work, but you can't. And then we had others saying, you can't collect rent. And we had others saying, well, you can collect rent, but you can't evict. We've had all these different crazy things going on, and it's really put a big question mark on a lot of things. And so you have to realize that ultimately, though, what's gone on with the market? Over the last several years, we've had a major supply problem. And it was actually before COVID, we had a supply problem. To give you an idea, nationally, we had 1.1 to 1.4 million listings on average in the country, okay? And we, at that time, 2017, 18, 19, that was a 3-year average, they were between 1.1 and 1.4 million. And in that time, the market was going up. A lot of us made a lot of money. I hope some of you made money at that time. It was really good. You'd buy a house and it would actually appreciate as we're buying it, as we're flipping it. And that was nice. That was extra money. We didn't count on it, but it was extra money. Rich and I would do a deal and we're thinking we're gonna make $30,000, $40,000 because it was a $100,000 house, and we make 50. Well, great, that was, that helped. I also saved our butts a couple of times when we opened a wall and something bad was in there. So, you open a wall and there's a window, there's no studs. You can't find the studs on the wall. There's 4 feet of no studs. And the siding, the interior tongue and groove wood was really holding the house up. Crazy. So, so that helped us. That little bit of appreciation, that did help us. However, as I said, what was happening then, you started having more and more buyers, the market was heating up, and with more buyers and less sellers, you had pressure, you had things going up, and then when COVID hit, other than a quick couple months of what's going on, I don't know if you remember that, but hey, they shut down air travel to Europe. We literally were going to go to Scotland, and we had just canceled for other reasons, but the week we were leaving, they shut down air travel. And then we were, I guess, our sister-in-law was trying to get her daughter back from Spain in like 12 hours because they were shutting down the country. So again, if you put yourself in that was a scary time. I even called sellers back that I was in contract with in escrow and saying, look, can I get another 10 or 15% off? The world's upside down. All right, if I can, I gotta walk. And actually they did walk, and I should have kept that deal because I lost $100,000 by not buying that deal. You know, so anyway, but we didn't know. And I didn't want to get caught with my pants down. Like some of my friends in 2007, 8, 9, I I was afraid, didn't want that to happen. So the main thing, we already started having this supply issue with housing. And when COVID hit, you had all the things, don't go outside, don't do this. If you put gas in your car, wipe your hands before you, there was a lot of unknown, right? I remember rushing and washing my hands every time I was pumping gas, afraid of something, until we realized it wasn't that bad. But one of the things that happened is listings fell through the floor. We went from 1.1 to 1.4 million to about 300,000 at one point. That's like a 75% drop. And that was actually, I think, earlier this year at one point it did. I saw another number, because these are based on numbers and statistics, and as Kristi said, they don't always agree. One number, it went to 237,000 out of 1.1 to 1.4 million. Okay, so you understand that is, in essence, is what creates some of these price increases. Is like, again, ultimately when it comes down to it, I look at things and go, are there more buyers or are there more sellers? Whatever was going on in the country, are there more buyers and there's more sellers? Okay? 2009, 10, and 11, you can buy houses for $50,000. Why? Because there were lots of inventory. Lots of inventory. Not as many buyers. When I started in real estate, and I started going to REIA meetings around 2009, 2010, I found Nick's REIA meeting. And we were in a room like this, and Nick had said, well, 3 years ago, we'd have had like 3 times as many people, and now that the buying season's open, where did everybody go? A lot of the other investors were wiped out, they got tired of it, whatever, but now the opportunity was there, a lot of them were scared and they were flat, and so the groups were smaller, at least 2010, 2011. So the main thing is that, as I'm talking about, is that again, I just go back to supply and demand, regardless of what's going on with interest rates, okay? Just wanted to kind of keep that simple. But I gotta get my glasses out because, you know, LASIK, old man as well. So basically, for example, in the SoCal market, to give you an idea, in 2017, 18, 19, we had 42,000 listings in the SoCal market. I don't think that included Imperial County, and that's San Diego, LA, Riverside, Orange County, and San Bernardino. But last year in 2021, we had less than 20,000, half of normal. Right now, there's approximately 30,000. We're still 25% lower than normal, okay? And by the way, just so you know, I get a lot of this information. Angela has signed up on a gentleman, I think Thomas. Anyways, reports on housing. Some of you know him, he's on YouTube. He releases a report every Thursday with numbers, the stats, etc. And I was talking to another agent today, her former boss, who said, hey, by the way, I listened to this, and he was telling me about reports on housing. Just a good source as well that you can get some info on. Every Thursday he releases a YouTube video on it. But, so anyway, it's still down 25%. So, and you start having to figure out is that there's a lot of things going on, and it's not just inventory. It's not just interest rates, because interest rates have gone up, and some people like me were like, oh, interest rates, I remember when they were 7, I remember when they were 8. My first house I bought in 1990, I think it was either 6 3/4 or 7 3/4. This is normal, right? Well, affordability is a big difference. Okay, give you an idea. In 2000, average interest rates were about 8% here, at least in SoCal, let's just say that. And the average house, the median house was $250,000. The median income was $45,000, okay? And the median payment was in the 1400s, 1500, right there. So your affordability was 39%. Today, you're looking at under 7, although we hit 7%, I think, recently, just for a quick blip, but it's high 6s. The average house, the median house is $795,000. It's tripled, more than tripled. But incomes went from $45,000 median to $84,000. Didn't quite double. Again, interest rates are important, but that price and salary and interest together double whammy. I remember not too long ago, Angela, I was in the car driving, she got a phone call, she had a listing, and it was another agent. It said, hey, you know that offer I was gonna bring you in 4 days based on from my buyer? And she's like, yeah. Well, we're out because they raised the interest rate and my buyer can't afford that $480,000 house, only now like $405 because of a point change, a little blip. So if you think of it this way, at 3.25%, $1 million house, if you could afford that, if it goes to 7%, it goes to about a $600,000 house for affordability. So if you're buying that $1 million house and all of a sudden you're just watching it and you're delayed, like, oh, I'm going to afford this, but I'll buy it in a few months. Later you go to buy with what's going on and you can afford most of the house. Maybe you block off the back rooms, you're not allowed to go into it or something. I don't know. Like, can I just buy the living room and the kitchen, bathroom? You know, I mean, that's kind of what do you do? Or you go, I'm going to move from Orange County to Riverside County. I'm going to move from LA County to San Bernardino County. That's what happens. And so that's what we did. I actually moved my family first from Orange County all the way to San Bernardino County for affordability. Did that years ago, and then we did it again from Orange County into Riverside County. We can afford over here, not over here. That's just what happens, we all know this. Okay, so again, it goes back to that affordability on it. So one of the things that's going on over the last year, you've seen days on market. Okay, that's an indicator of how much housing inventory there is. And I remember being up here early in the year saying days on market average was between 22 and 30, depending on which county here in SoCal. Okay, as of the other day, 81 days on market right now. Now remember this, anything under 90 days is traditionally, I'll use that word, is considered a seller's market. Okay, anything under 90 days. So we're still in the traditional seller's market, but it's rapidly changing. You can see it going this way. You're hearing about people falling out of escrow, backing out of escrow. My wife the other day was in escrow. Being the buyer's agent, I refer to her a lot because I get some feedback from this. But basically, she was in escrow with her client to buy a house. And they wanted $550,000. And they had offered $510,000, settled on $520,000, and this was a fixer. There was like mushrooms growing behind the toilet. Now it qualified for a loan, but there was mushrooms. The roof was shot. The roof shed water, but it was on the end of its 20 or 30 year life. So what'd she do once the report came out, inspection report? She asked something you wouldn't ask a year ago. She asked for a request for repairs. Hey, we want a $10,000 credit for the roof and $1,000 for this and this. Well, the sellers, what do you think they did? Is it a seller's market, is buyer's market? What do you think they did? So what they did They came back and go, well, we'll give you $5,000, right? That's a compromise, right? Now, a year ago, sellers would have said, get lost. No, we got 4 other offers, no inspection contingencies, no appraisal contingencies. You know, we get their firstborn, you know, it's still what it is, right? So the reality is the market has changed. Well, her buyers walked. They had already done everything else, and they were for that $5,000. They said, screw it. Why? Because there will be something better coming soon. By the way, the house, which was $550, and the seller said, well, we gave up $30,000 already. We want to give up 5 more. Just relisted at $520. They're going to get $480, $470. They lost $30,000, $40,000 over $5 grand. Right? So again, you're going to see that change. So keep in mind that a lot of the buyers are realizing things are different. Sellers are starting to realize things are different. Some stubborn ones still exist. And agents are going to have to be a little bit more real talking to the sellers going, this is not a year ago. Okay, so understand that. If you're buying something and it's on the market, you have a little more leverage. We have a house on the market right now. And if I had a buyer that came to me and they want $8,000 credit for something, I'm going to say, sure. You know, if I get $1,000 less, fine. But no, you like the house, everything good, I'll take my win and run. Okay? Remember, it's changing. It's not a year ago. It's just not. So I'm going to say don't get greedy, but just understand. A win is a win. So understand that, again, that anything from 90 to 120 days is more of a mature market. And really right now we're on the cusp of going into that mature market. The question is whether we're going to go into much beyond that into a buyer's market. And that comes up to a bunch of stuff. Are there going to be mass layoffs? Well, we're seeing some layoffs. I haven't seen all the news. Like Kristi, I don't follow a lot of the news sources. We cut TV and all that a while ago. I see blurbs from Facebook and the other, and if it's interesting, I read it. But we have seen something that Angela knows, I've noticed, where we're seeing on some of our local, like what's going on, Corona, et cetera, where people are saying, hey, anyone have a job? I just got laid off. I'm a loan officer, or I was a loan officer. We were in Vegas some months ago with some friends, some of the guys in this room having a nice dinner in Vegas, and we were sitting next to a gal, and I said, what do you do? And she worked for like Wells Fargo or Chase in the loan division. Well, how is that? She goes, we're dead. This was like 4 months ago, okay? It's crazy. We then were like, that's not good. Maybe get these refinances in real quick while they're still offering this, you know? That got to be an issue. So short of that, are there going to be mass layoffs? We'll see. Just so you know, Rich learned this when we started working together. Is when we started doing deals, I told him that I don't do long projects. I'm not, hey, let's buy this lot, develop it, and go sell it and make a fortune. I don't. I want to be in and out like 90 days, 120 days. I was doing that years ago. Why? Because I was worried about not recognizing a 2008 situation, 2009, getting caught with 10 properties. I had a friend that lost 14 properties last go around. She flipped over 108 houses, she made millions of dollars, and she took all of her money and moved it to property in Boise, Idaho. I ended up calling her yesterday because I wanted to refresh my memory. And she had a bunch of deals going there, flipping, things are good, everything's great, and all of a sudden she couldn't do anything. And her properties, none of them, because the financing she had on, even though she had a great relationship, she was a spokesman for a hard money lender. They paid her to come in to talk to her group to say, yeah, this company's really good, et cetera, and they'll do this. If they paid her to do that, here's my flips. Used to have bus tours to her properties. Well, she lost every single property because she couldn't rent them out for what the payments were. She couldn't get financing. So this is my psyche, because I was not a fix and flipper, a real estate investor at the time. I owned a rental, I had a rental, we had that in our house. So I don't look at it the same way. I tell you that so you know I wasn't in the real estate business in that time frame like Nick was, or some of the others, okay? So I was like a lot of you, where I was just had a job, and one day we got pay cuts, we got salary cuts, and so life changed really quickly, okay? So I'm saying back then, we looked at that I didn't look through that through the prism of a real estate investor. So I was worried I was going to miss the signs. So when I bumped into Nick like 5 years ago at the gym, I kept seeing this guy going, because I used to see, you know, way back when, and I go, man, is that Nick? And I finally walked up and said, are you Nick Manfredi? He goes, yeah. You know, it's like, yeah, we started talking. We spent an hour that day because I told him, we were talking about Bruce Norris, and then saying, I told him, I'm afraid of not recognizing the signs. He's like, Evan, you will see the signs. They will be on like billboards going on. You have to decide to ignore them or not. And he went into his reasoning and the other. I remember that for about an hour. We're standing there. Everyone's like, can I get to the machine, please? And we're stepping aside trying to talk. And so, and I really appreciate that time because it was like, again, all right, I'll be able to see it. But before that, because I was worried about 2008, we were only doing shorter deals. If it was a burnout, I wasn't interested. If we're going to add tons of square foot, I'm not interested. That was what I was doing, okay? We also stayed in a lower median, way under the median. Most of my houses are $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. We bought a lot of $60,000, $80,000 houses in the last, say, 7 years. So I'm in escrow right now for another house for $100 grand. I'm in doing a probate thing for about $130,000. Here, right here in California, right here in the desert, we stay more in that price point. All right, I've only bought one house over like $500,000, and I moved it to a friend in the room. I just not in that market. I'll wholesale it, but one of my mentors, when I showed him $1 million house, said, Evan, you seem to do well in your area. Why do you want to step into this area? And I'm like, I'm here to show you this house. I don't want to spend $200,000 on a flip. But he said these are the ones where you can lose 200 grand on, and it's happened to him, or 150,000. So my point is I know where our market is, and I'm staying in my market, and now it's being underlined what we've done. So those of you that have the $1 million homes that's just now hitting the market, great, all for it. In Orange County or wherever, in LA, great. Hats off to you. A lot of stuff we've done is shifted, and I'll get into that in a minute based on what's going on in the market. But I just wanted to point out I was already doing these shorter deals because we didn't want to cut. Now we have things that took almost a year, but I didn't set out to do it because I was just keeping it close to the chest. I didn't need to make $200,000 on a deal and $300,000 and $180,000. Now if we can make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and only put out $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and get 100% on our money or 50 or 80%, we were good. So understand that I'm coming from on that. So the other thing though, when I mentioned about mass layoffs coming, is that Amazon, I read this the other day, Amazon just announced that they stopped completing 12 or 13 different warehouses. They just stopped. Now they have hundreds of warehouses, but they were in contract to finish these and they said nope, and they pulled out. Said no as of a couple days ago. I just saw that, I was reading about that. What's that going to do to the commercial sector? Keep an eye on it. A couple of the REITs now, real estate investment trusts, a few of them in the commercial end. Just saw a few. That didn't look good either. Okay? So again, what does that mean? Well, again, I look at the market in the next 60, 90 days, maybe out to 180, but mostly the next 30, 60, 90 days. That's mostly what I focus. Can I buy a property, get in and get out in the next 30, 60, 90 days? So I'm not looking a year out. I can't predict that. But I know if I buy this house right now, current conditions, I can do this and get in and get out, or I can wholesale it, or I can buy it as a rental, I'm good. I know what I can do in a short time frame, okay? Again, someone shows me a burnout house right now, I'm going to, unless I'm going to keep it as a rental, or buy it, fix it, and keep it as an ADU, then it doesn't bother me to do a longer project. But that's what I'm doing. So I'm just basically saying again, I would focus on shorter projects. I would not start the big build, building a 3-story house that's going to take you a year and a half to complete. I just wouldn't do that. So I want to talk about that. Some of the things we've been doing to prepare. We started shifting. First of all, again, the 90 to 180 days of shorter projects we're doing. I'm very conservative as an investor, again, because the 2008 is just there. I didn't want to be, I was afraid that Monday everything's good, money's coming in, everything's great, woohoo, riding motorcycles. Tuesday I'm living in a box with the dog because my wife's divorcing me. And then I realized I was silly, I probably would never get the dog, you know, so. I just didn't know if I recognized it. I really did. And that's just been a concern as I looked at what I was doing. So understand that. I don't try to do 27 different type of deals. We stay on a fix and flip, wholesale, Lonnie deals, mobile homes on land, the mobile homes in the park. And I absolutely, it's something Nick said earlier, but Kristi said it as well, know what's coming. You're gonna see a lot of seller financing, a lot of wraps are gonna be coming, sub-2 deals. In the last 2 weeks, I've gotten 3 calls from people, from members that all had a seller financing or a sub-2 type deal that they're working on. One's raising a hand right now. And that went from occasionally from members to 3 in like 2 weeks, okay? And whether they were really great deals or okay deals really isn't the point. The point is sellers are going, what? Let's talk about it, okay? So definitely agree with that shift. Again, I buy on the median, but one of the things about what we've done as well is that we grew as far as rentals. I had one of my mentors, Mick Blackwell, just passed away, as you know. A lot of you know. He, about 3 or 4 years ago, started beating me into submission about, Evan, you better be holding these rentals, because when that music stops, it's gonna suck if you're a flipper. You wanna hold your property. You wanna buy, fix, and keep those properties. I can show you how to do it. He wanted me to change a bunch of stuff, and we did what we could do within the constraints of my business structure that I already have in my agreements. And I'm so thankful for that, man, because when COVID hit, we were ready. We were prepared to ride it out with the rentals, and 95% of all of our tenants paid. We had some paying late, but we didn't have any of those issues. But what we do is that when we, in a period of a couple years, bought a lot of rentals, and we weren't prepared on the back end to really do it. You have a couple rentals, it doesn't matter how you pay rent or how you set up maintenance, etc. Oh, they just give me a call, I can call them. But when you start having dozens and dozens of calls, and then you start having, well, someone Zells and Venmos, and someone deposits, and then they deposit not the exact amount, they deposit the amount of someone else's rent, and they don't put it on. It starts becoming a problem. So some of the things we did is we want to strengthen our foundation. And I went in 2022 going, I'm going to fix a lot of weaknesses in our company and strengthen them with our team. That's what I started to do. Thank God we were already thinking of doing that as things started happening. One of the things with it is that I got rid of a couple things, a couple properties I was managing for some friends because it was clutter. Get it out of my way, I don't need it. Okay? Think of decluttering what you're doing. Think of getting out of the things that are costing you time, money, effort, things like that. Straighten out some of that stuff. So we set up a rental portal so we can straighten that out to save money and save time. Okay, actually Angela the other day was going through some bills and says, hey, are we still using this? Are we still using this? And we still using something else? Richard checked and we canceled a couple things we were paying for, but we're no longer using. We just kind of missed it. I don't know if it was 32 cents or $100. I don't remember a month, but it was, again, so Kristi saying that again, it's like, hey, we just did that. So definitely. I also I went back to my private money lenders. I revamped the terms on some of my deals where they were doing it 1 to 3 years, my mobile homes on land. I got them changed to 4 to 8 years that they're due. So I went and did that, and I started talking about that months ago, and then we just got that signed and then pulled out some money and started some other refis to create a war chest, call it, and to get some of the other shorter term stick bills into a 30-year loan to create that chest so we could get moving, okay? So we could, for what's coming, for what we see, all right? Now, so we pulled cash out. We were hypothecating some of our notes, because you don't know what that means, you need to take in this class. And we'll talk to Goodwin. And the idea is we were getting some money together again for what we feel is coming and over the next 2 years. But to give an idea, recently, if you go back a while ago, we'd be doing 5 to 8 projects, maybe 10 projects at once, and it was 2 or 3 were hitting the market, 2 or 3 were full-on rehabs and flips they were doing, and 2 or 3 were in escrow. So we might have 8, 9, 10 deals, and they were flips, and they might carry over. Some we'd sell as some were coming on. And that, let's say that was a little while ago. Well, if you look at them now, we have about the same number, maybe a little less, but 1 or 2 are flips. And like 5 or 6 were rehabs that were rentals, and several were Lonnie deals. So it changed to something that I didn't care if we didn't make it to market because it was a rental, okay? So we were shifting on that. And So we basically did that so that we had less exposure on it. One of the things we're getting ready to do is far more, talking about it, is as far as our buy box, really we're still doing the lower price deals. We're staying mostly under $200,000, $300,000 deals. We wholesale the more expensive stuff, that heavier carrying costs. We expect to do a lot more sub-2 deals we've talked about. We're seeing more foreclosures. We're doing a lot of probates right now, doing several of those. A lot more Lonnie deals. Really looking for the solid deals, more the home runs in the main markets or markets we know. Not going out in the middle of nowhere trying to make something work or something that just has a 5-foot roof that you gotta convince someone to buy. We're staying away from anything like that. And the main thing to remember between 2008 and now is that more of the houses, first of all, those funny loans that were going on that help fuel a lot of that, very few. If they exist, please correct me. There's very, very few that were out there. Then there's far more equity. Far more people have equity now. I think 71% of all loans right now are under, or 4.2% are under. There's more free and clear houses, and there's just much better loans. So a lot of the people that aren't in danger of losing the homes due to funny loans. That's what I'm getting at. But I think you will see, as the market's gone really hot, to start flattening and maybe dipping a little. I think you're going to see people that bought in the last year because the market's going and they need to sell, and they're going to go, I can't afford an agent to do it. I'm going to have money come out of pocket. So they're going to go, well, I got this great loan at 4%, but why don't you give me 20 grand and you can just take over my payment? And if the terms are right, you might bid a house hack, turn it into an ADU, rent it out. There's a lot of options. You're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And I'm hearing that from a lot of places. So ultimately it comes down to, again, that there's just, as long as there's more buyers than sellers, there's going to be a demand. When that changes, you're going to see the opposite. You're going to see a buying frenzy. And understand that the government, what it's done is by raising the Fed, by raising that prime rate over and over and over again, raising that, is to get this inflation, to get the economy just enough to where it's going to go ahead and stop and stall and not go into a recession. And the second it kind of stops enough to take the pressure off, to get enough buyers to stop buying, to stop borrowing money, when you start seeing that enough and more people put the house on the market, get some of that pressure, then they already said they'd start releasing the brakes, they'd start lowering rates again to do that. But to stop a multi-trillion-dollar economy, to almost stop it and get it going again, it's extremely difficult. All right, but understand that they're trying to do something to slow down the demand, but it ultimately comes down to influencing buyers, and buyers are getting scared, so they're backing off, but are more of them backing off than the sellers. If we had a more normal market, probably you'd see a buyer's market really quick. But there's so few homes on the market, and there's still so many buyers that even with buyers backing out daily, when is that going to be? It's coming. When? We'll see. So that's really what I wanted to kind of cover and what I talk about is that. So first of all, question real quick.
Got time for one.
One question?
Yep. Quick answer.
What?
How long have you been investing in real estate for?
As deliberately, 13 years. Deliberately 13 years, 7 years as a full-time investor.
I guess you got time for one more.
Okay, and then Rich, I want to.
Yeah, as soon as I get the.
All right, we have time for one more question. Yes.
What's a great resource for learning seller financing and subject to?
Peter Fortunato is a great resource to learn seller financing and subject to.
I heard he's coming out here.
Yeah, I heard he's coming out here too. You know, another place, Andy is really good. I learned a lot from Andy. Andy in the back in the orange shirt from his class, and they had to go buy him lunch, and he'll talk your ear off if you go to his place. Seriously, and he'll do that. I learned a lot from him. And there are gurus you can learn from if you put it in there. Pace Morby is one guy. I like Pace. You don't need to give him 50 grand. He gives away a lot of content for free. But again, and of course, I'm sure Nick Manfredi, Chris Bedgood, there's a lot of guys that know that. Yeah. Okay.
There's a weekly class on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, let me run on. Let me say that other one thing real quick. I didn't put that in my note, I meant to. One of the things where I've done some deals at is the exchangers. I expect that the more the market gets more chaotic, that we're going to see a lot more deals being brought to exchangers. I kind of do. I think we did 2 or 3 this year. I just negotiated some hypothecation deal with Andy, but I expect to do a lot more in the next year coming up. Okay, so like I said, we're getting ready for a lot of opportunities because I think there's still going to be a lot of scared people not sure what to do, and we want to be prepared to help them navigate what they're doing through whatever they're going through.
Yeah, when was the last time you saw Nick
Okay.
in the gym?
What? Well, he's probably in the gym. I haven't been in the gym because. Hey guys, I need to. I get the privilege to introduce Nick, and I wanted to tell the story real quick. As I said earlier, 2010, I went to this gentleman's rehab meeting and started going. I met a lot of neat guys like Ward Hannigan, who does trusts, which I took his class last year. One guy that buys 1-bedroom houses. That's all he buys. People like Nick Blackwell, Aaron Mazzrillo, Mike Ken too. So some great teachers. And Nick was a great teacher as well. And I loved going to his class, especially when I had no idea what half the guys were saying. It's like, what? I don't, what does that mean? But I wanted to explain something that about 9 years ago, we had a tragedy in our family. And Angela and I spent like 2 weeks sitting in a waiting room in a hospital. And I don't know if Nick remembers this. So anyway, we spent about 2 weeks in a hospital. It was about my grandson, and our grandson, sorry. And it was just a tragic time. It was just a real rough time. And in the middle of that, you know, just sitting there with our daughter and all that, we just had to kind of, you know, not going to work, not dealing with it. I had a job, we both did. And so it turned out that I realized there's a rehab meeting tonight. I'm going to go to it. So I went to Nick's rehab meeting and sat there, more for the escape. Plus I wanted to be around like-minded people, something positive to do that. Even though I didn't know really anybody, you know, 2 people maybe. And I knew Nick, but he didn't know me. And while I was there, I'm just kind of vegging a little bit, trying to, so like some of you are right now. But I was vegging like, what's going on this? And because I was thinking about our grandson. And all of a sudden, he's talking about something, and he stops, and he says, and yeah, that was from the book of Malachi. Malachi was my grandson. And I went, what? And he talked about Malachi. I don't know if you remember this now. Okay, so, I'm like, oh, what did he say? And I didn't hear it. But now I knew I needed to be in this room tonight. So the next day, I didn't go up to him because I just wasn't in the frame of mind. Sent him an email. And I poured my heart out in an email. I said, can you tell me what you were talking about, teaching in that moment about from Malachi? Can you do that? And I sent this email off. I didn't hear back. It was like, I thought a week, a couple days, whatever. But honestly, about 6 months to a year later, he comes across the email. It got buried. I don't know if it was spam or what, and I don't know. I swear it was 6 months to a year. It was not a week later. He called me. I was in my JOB, and he goes, hey, Evan, this is Nick Manfredi. And I'm like, yeah, I know who you are. He says, I am so sorry. I just saw this. What happened? So I gave him an update, which wasn't good. And he expressed his condolences. And then he went into what he was talking about from that night, because he remembered that night, because something like this was going on. He spent an hour with me on the phone, someone he didn't know. He knew someone was hurting and was going through a challenge. And from the expressly, I can't put in words as much how much that meant to me. Again, he didn't know me, just some guy. And he spent that time doing that. And so, again, knowing I was hurting like that, I don't remember hardly anything we talked about except the compassion, the understanding, and I felt someone really cared and helped guide, and I knew it was going to be okay. And I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Nick. And I'd like to say again, it tells me about this man's character, and you have a real treat ahead of you. And again, I want to say thank you, Nick Manfredi. There he is.
Well, I don't remember that at all. That's funny. No, we talked about Malachi 3:10, which is a biblical verse that says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse that there would be food in my house. Test me on this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I won't open the windows of heaven and pour out such a blessing there won't be enough room to contain it. Which is that little biblical verse there for you. I was not going to share the Bible at all today. So, a couple of things that we've kind of heard tonight, which is like kind of questions as to where it is that the market's going, where it's been, where the tops are, where the bottoms are. I was a psychotherapist, and people are jacked up. People are pretty jacked up. But one of the things that I liked about psychotherapy and the statistics, you all are, not jacked up, but everyone else is. But was the statistics indicated how they would respond to stimuli. And there would be natural bell-shaped curves, statistics that would suggest what is the likelihood a person would respond this way or that way. And after some time, I left that industry and I started, how you go to CoreLogic now, or you go to Zillow and you get the automated valuations. I prayed one day, and sure enough, I started working for that company right afterward, and all those automated valuations you see everywhere today, I worked for the company disseminating those automated valuations, and it was all statistics. So I really enjoy analysis. I don't do a great job of turning off you can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can? Okay. So sometimes it's difficult to turn off those analysis in my head, just the way I was born. So tonight I'm going to do my best to say, well, where is the top? And where is the bottom? Where is that? Because I found it fairly easy to predict. There's great data out there that you're at the top of the market whenever you hit 17% affordability. That is, 17% of the people in the state of California can afford a median price home. Ever since the 70s, that's what that number's been. Every single time, except for whenever we were doing those liar loans in like 2005, 6, and 7. It got a little lower than that, but it was still 17%. We just hit 17% in May. If you go to my Facebook, interest rates went up, and you go to my Facebook, it says, snap, said the seller's market. It was over. I was waiting for it. I was prepared for it. I sold all my properties in 2005 because we hit roughly 17% affordability. I moved them to Texas, and to move them back in 2009, 10, and 11. The importance behind that analysis, that is, when is it at the top and when is it at the bottom, is the most important thing that we have in the state of California. It's because of Prop 13. In the 70s, we got Prop 13. Prop 13 detached your taxes, our taxes, away from the value of the home. That's why in Texas, property values really don't go up and down tremendously. They follow the median income. But in the state of California, we've detached our property values, I should say our property taxes, from what the actual value of the house is. So these swings have been allowed, in my opinion, the swings have been allowed to really oscillate. And what's great about that, I have a friend in here who got in right around 2008. He is a textbook case for you. Jeremy's in the room and in the back, and he's shy and everything, but he got started right around 2008. He was coming to the investors forum, and that guy has so many freaking houses right now. It's ridiculous because what? He started buying oodles and oodles of properties at the bottom. When he's buying at the bottom, with the increase that we just had, what if you started buying at the bottom and you had the courage to know that, guess what, we're towards the bottom of the market. It's going to be difficult to lose. That's how I gauge whether I'm going to make a decision to buy or not. How hard is it to lose? If it is really easy to lose, I want to move forward. If it's hard to lose, load me up. Whereas where we're at right now, which was very predictable, it was extremely predictable that we're gonna hit this time of the market. And I'm going to do my best to kind of share with you the bad news of how low it's going to go and about how long it's going to take, so you can know, just like where Jeremy got started, maybe you get started and you go crazy. Okay, is that fair enough? All right. So I can't read this. Unless I turn around, it's too far away. So I'm going to talk about California appears to be falling in price at a rate of about 1.6% a month. That's 20% a year. It's not that far, it's not far that much shorter of a fall or slower of a fall when we saw it in 08. It's about 1.6%. When you go to Google, look up your house if you don't have it listed. If it's listed, Google's going to say it's worth whatever the dang realtor is listing it for. If it's not listed, it'll give you a pretty decent evaluation. It's going to tell you it dropped 1.6, 1.5, 2.5% last month or in the last 30 days. So we're dropping at about 1.5%. We've dropped about 10% in the last 6 months. I make 5 offers a day. I have an assistant who's making these offers for me. Whenever we look at comps from 6 months ago, it's about 10% different. Not including the concessions that were given, right? We didn't give concessions 6 months ago. So we're dropping about 1.6%. I'm assuming, and we're going to talk about this, about an 8% mortgage rate in May of 2024. Why? The only way we're going to be able to slow down inflation is by taking the Fed rate, and it has to be above. It has to be above in order to slow down inflation. It has to be above what the inflation rate is. The Fed rate has to go above the inflation rate in order to slow down the inflation rate. Why is that? Because whenever you've got all these big companies, they're buying these big buildings, they're putting all this money into the marketplace, they're borrowing it from the banks. Inflation acts like a fog. They can't see how high inflation is going to go and how long it's going to be, but they have a 3-year estimated finish time for their project. They don't know what's going to cost, so they don't do it. So those people don't get hired. So they don't invest in the company, so those people don't get hired. And that's what leads us into a recession. And that's why you have, on TV and everybody saying, "Ooh, the Fed's doing this," and people aren't really describing why. That's why. That's why the jobs report most likely looks as good as it does right now. Jobs are on fire still. They're not slowing down. Not yet, at least in the U.S. I expect about, this is scary, huh? 44% decline in the median purchase price. 44%. Last time, in 2008, 2 years out, well, one point was like 20 months out, I hit the month that it was going to be at the bottom and the exact dollar amount. And I'm using the same statistics or analysis that I'm going to share with you right now. Now, I could be wrong. With everything, I'm going to say I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm betting on me. I don't think I'm wrong. But I'm going to use the same, and if I explain this to you, if I had the time to one-on-one go through it with you, you go, oh, I get it, because actually most of the stuff you already know. You already know most of the stuff I'm going to say, but people just don't break it down easily because they have a program to sell or something like that. So there's a couple ways that you can look historically at the last 3 down markets when we hit a bottom. If you look at the median price as a multiple of the income. So if you go ahead and you have, like right now, roughly, it's like 83, but $80,000 median income. The median house, if you detach Prop 13, the median house in your neighborhood, or I should say in your city, it should be right around the median income. I mean, that's a bell-shaped curve. That is, if your taxes weren't detached. In Texas, that's how it is. Why? Because they go ahead and evaluate their properties every single year, and they get taxed on whatever the value of that house is. So the values of properties don't go up because they're not incentivized to allow it to continue to go up. Does that make sense? Here, it doesn't matter. If you bought your house 20 years ago, your tax rate on your home is barely inched up. And so it's allowed to go crazy. Well, if you look a multiple, so in other words, if you make $80,000 as a multiple of the income in the past 3 cycles, in the 80s, it was 4.4. So in other words, in the 80s, people were making it ballparking around $35,000. If you took $30-something thousand, you multiply times 4, you ended up getting the median income. Same thing with the 90s. I should say you got the multiple. Does that make sense? Does everybody know what the multiple, what I'm referring to? You just take the median income and you multiply times whatever this number is, and that was the bottom of the market. Does that make sense? Make sense? In the 90s, when we hit the bottom, around 97, end of 96, it was 4.8. What?
I feel my duty is being the guy in the back who speaks up.
Sure.
I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but that formula made absolutely no sense to me. You want to try again?
Sure. If you make right now, $80,000, roughly $83,000, but $80,000 is the median income. Right now, the median value, median property value is right around $800,000 in the state of California, right? That's a multiple of 10. Does that make sense? Now does it make sense? That's what the multiple means. So what this is here, I'm looking at the very bottom. When we hit the bottom, what was the multiple at the bottom? So in the 80s, it was 4.4. In the 90s, it was 4.8. And in the 2000s, like 2000 to 2010, when we kind of hit that bottom, obviously in 09 roughly, 2010, going all the way to 5.1. The average is 4.6. It's not that far, it's not that, and all of the tops, the top of the market, they were all 10. We made it 10 times as a multiple. So this is how close this starts to get. It repeats itself. So, once again, our median income right now in California is $83,000. $83,000 times the average of 4.76 has an property purchase price of $494,000. I'm just using averages. You know, I'm not going ahead and saying, oh, this is my crystal ball. I'm just using math. So you end up with $494,000 as a median value. That is the total purchase price, assuming they're putting 20% down. Today, it's about 810, and it's down from around 885 in ballpark. And some people say June. It was really a little bit before that. It was in May. Could have been really in April if you looked at the concessions and everything. That would be a 44% decline from peak to trough. This was the one that I used in 2008 and 2007 to predict where the bottom would be. That is the payment as a percentage of median income. In the 80s, at the bottom of the 80s market, it was 40%. That is your monthly income compromise and your housing. It was about 40% of what your monthly income was. It dropped all the way to 40. That was the best it got. We didn't really see property values decrease that much in the 80s, believe it or not, even with inflation. In the 90s, it went all the way down, that is 96, all the way down to 35%, and it stuck there for like 4 years. 35, so if you made $100,000, I'm making the math simple, on average, not actually very predictably, 35% of your income, you agree to go ahead and pay for housing. That is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Make sense? Whenever you get a loan through Wells Fargo, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at your ratios. You know how they feel about what they're going to offer you in terms of a loan. That would be considered a ratio for you. Well, in the 2008, 2009, 2010, it got pretty bad. It got all the way down to 28.2. Remember how bad everybody felt about real estate at that time, right? So if I just average it, once again, I'm not trying to get real predictable. I'm just taking the averages. And you end up with a 34.5% average. Well, if you take $83,000 as a median income, it's kind of, oh, it does show it. Okay, good. Times 34.5%, that equals $28,635. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Or $2,386 a month. Right now, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds absolutely crazy. But let me ask you this. If I asked every single one of you in this room, and I said, I've got a $700,000 house for you. You can buy it right now. It's worth about 700 grand. And it dropped 15 grand last month, because that's about how fast we're dropping. And the month before that, it dropped about 15,000 bucks. And the month before that, it dropped around $15,000. And the month before that dropped around 15,000 for the last 6 months. What do you think it's going to drop next month? The herd, the statistical group, the bell-shaped curve of people, they're smart. They ain't so dumb. And now we got Facebook to shout it all over the place. I'm in pain. What's up, Corona? I lost my house. We didn't have that in 08. It was bad in 08, and we didn't have the ability to tell everybody how bad it was. In 08, I was still buying my newspapers, that is the press enterprise, at the liquor store. Now it's like, come on my feed, your house is going down, you're in big trouble. Then what's up, Corona? That's my house. So, if you take the mortgage amount, this is the exact math I used last time. The mortgage amount and then the purchase price, and then you take it, then I'm gonna say, what is the interest rate gonna be? And I'll give you all the interest rates. I'll give you from 6 to 10%. I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be somewhere between 6 and 10%, most likely. So, if you have a 6% interest rate, and you use that number, there's a median income. Those median incomes don't change that much. It's possible that inflation could increase it a bit, but it ain't gonna go up that much. It's gonna be a lot, it's gonna lag. And the reality is the last downturn, income's diminished. So maybe it stays the same, but it ain't gonna change that much. If you take a 6% interest rate, you end up with a mortgage of $395,000 or a purchase price if you put 20% down of $494,000 bucks. That's just math. You know that. That isn't. So if people are gonna sit there and say, hey, when it's bad, when it gets bad, people on average, over the last 3 downturns, in every single one of you, most of you, in your entire lifetime, that's exactly what happened. If you've got good answers why it ain't gonna happen this time, I'd love to hear it, but I haven't heard any great explanations. So I'm gonna kind of stick with this. So 6%, you end up with a $395,000 mortgage or a $494,000 purchase price. 7%, you're at $360,000 as a mortgage, and $451,000 as a purchase price. 8%, $325,000, $412,000. 9%, $295,000, $370,000. 10%, $270,000, $338,000. Is 10% possible? It's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. The Fed should have already. The Fed is hoping, they're trying to thread this needle, I think. I don't know what those guys think sometimes, right? They're kind of, we don't, who knows what they're thinking. They might want to just let this Fed burn. They might want to let this inflation rate just burn. I don't know, but they've got to get it under control to some degree, and the only way they're going to get it under control is by raising the federal funds rate above the inflation rate. The inflation rate is right around 8%, so they got to be at 9. Well, if the Fed rate's at 9, raise your hand if you know what the interest rate on the 30-year mortgage should be. Ballpark. Anyone know? It's over 9. Yeah. So people say, that's never gonna happen. I thought it ain't never gonna happen. It happened in the 80s. Hardcore went way higher than that. Way higher than that. Could it happen? It could. Is it possible it doesn't happen? Absolutely. I'm pegging 8 because I don't want to scare people to death. I'm not saying it's not going to be 10. I'm not saying it's going to be 6. You know, I'll take whatever it is, just as it is going to be. So, what am I doing? I can't read that at all. It's so far away. So, I'm going to turn around. I'm subtracting 10% from all my offers. That's for sure. I mean, whenever you're buying property and it's going up 10%, you can't lose. If you got a $500,000 house and it drops 10%, that's $50,000. For most people, that's the entire amount of the mortgage. And you just got started, you want to start flipping houses, you want to be a real estate investor. So you go out there, you get your pants on. I'm going to assume a bunch of you I know are females, but I'm going to say for you males, you're out there, I'm being a real estate investor, and your wife's all, you suck at this. That's the last thing you want. You want your wife to support you. Wives, you want your husbands to support you. So you gotta make, I did. I knew it would be an uphill battle. I really wanted to be a real estate investor, and without my wife's support, it was gonna be very difficult. So I wanted that. So in other words, I wanted to treat it with as much respect as I could. Well, you better take 10% off because I don't have a reason that I see that it's going to slow down. That the decrease in property values will slow down. I haven't heard anyone say, hey, it's going to be because the data doesn't show that. In your lifetime, it's never happened. So come up with the thing that has never happened in your lifetime that can convince me. I haven't heard it once. Everybody's all, because. Right. So, I do have online marketing going, so I was supposed to, he said, will you say what you're doing? I can't tell you everything we're doing in 20 minutes, but I can say, of course, you're gonna do your online marketing, right? You're gonna be like sending out, you're gonna put a website up, you're gonna do something. It doesn't cost that much money, but if you're an investor, you're gonna do some of that. I'm also mailing. I'm never gonna stop probably mailing here and there to specific individuals. I've hired a marketing assistant, so he's working 8 hours a day. And he's making offers, contacting agents, he's doing some of the driving for dollar stuff, but primarily talking to agents. That's been a rough road to hoe. I mean, in 2008, how much time do I have left? Okay. In 2007, no, in like August, I remember that. And all my family, the Christmas before said, where's your big drop, Nick? Where's your big drop? I mean, I was at my house. I'm having Christmas. I'm paying for your, where's your big drop? It's a mathematical certainty. It's going to happen. But I was going, hey man, where the heck is this drop?
2009, they were telling you you're an idiot.
Yeah, I've got so much crap. And then all of a sudden I was a genius. Oh, you're Nostradamus. My wife calls me. No, let's make sure that part. I already said that. Net income, I already talked about that. I'm setting up a corporate, I am setting up corporate lines of credit. Peter Fortunato would hate that, but to have a line with a couple $1 million on it and not have to go to, depending on how many deals we have, not to go necessarily to other individuals, I should say companies, for hard money loans and to get more, you know, a reasonable rate just makes me more conservative, I should say more competitive. I also have my real estate license. If you don't have your real estate license, now's a good time. If you have your real estate license, a lot of the gurus are going to tell you, you don't need your license, you need your dang license. You need your dang, you're going to say, you can't even compete with me. If I'm going to make an offer on a house and I get paid 2.5% when I buy, and I save 2.5% when I sell, you can't compete. So all the people that tell you, go get your real, you're not going to compete, you're off by 5% every single time. And so now if you're going to go to a hard money lender and you're going to get, I'm not telling you, I love hard money lenders, I use them all the time. No, I don't, that's a lie. but I love them, they got me through, and at the beginning of the career, it's great. Anyways, there you go. I lost my train of thought. I gotta go. There's good. Others have good. I'm also, yeah, you got to be competitive, and if the cheaper your money, the more competitive you're going to be. Flat out, you got to eliminate as many costs as you can. We heard from Kristi, who said, "Hey, you know, pay off your house." Well, you know what? You want to be able to be as competitive as you can. If you're going to compete against Evan, if you're going to compete with me, with Andy, or anyone else out here who's doing it, otherwise you're just spinning your wheels. Your realtor license saves you money. And I had a person, I sold their house, it was $1 million house, I'm all sure I'll sell it, and I didn't even take the pictures. So I made like 20 grand, do it. All right, let's see. Over the past 10 years, 100% of my, okay, so I either funded my flips with my cash, with my self-directed IRA, or, you know, individuals that I would meet, even in the group, would go ahead and be hard money lenders for me. So if you have a self-directed IRA and you want to get in with individuals, it's real helpful to be able to work with them and partner with them, and then you get to see exactly how they do the deal. They'll tell you kind of everything. By the same token, individuals that you run into who might have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and they can give you money at 10%, shall we say, that can save you some points and fees. Also, with all of the people that gave me money for all of my flips, if it wasn't mine, written into the agreement was, I don't have to pay you anything until the property sells, but it's a 12-month balloon. I'm going to flip this property. So how many deals can you do if they would fund the purchase price, the rehab, and I had to give them no money until the property sold? How many can you do? You do a lot of dang deals. So encouragement is to find individuals, be trustworthy. I've been in 24 years of doing this. I don't have one partner investor that's lost a penny of principal or interest. Even on deals that I lost, there's 2 deals in all 600 deals I did. I lost like 100 grand on each of them, and I took it out of pocket and paid them. So you gotta buck up if something goes bad. That was in Lake Arrowhead, by the way, both properties. Lake Arrowhead is horrible. So I don't know if you can read this because I can't read from here. So this is what it looks like in terms of trajectory. We're losing about $15,000 a month. I believe it's because Evan even said it a second ago. Well, my next door neighbor, the neighbor down the street, they sold their house for $500,000. All right, I'll take $490,000. And the realtor says, well, you got to take $5,000 less. Okay, so it ends up being kind of like a mental block in their head. They're like, they'll take 15 grand less. I think when we get into the 645 range, you're going to see people losing their houses. And so foreclosures are going to start popping up. Everybody's telling you right now, there ain't going to be no foreclosures. There's no more. What about all the people who just bought it the last 2 years? They're upside down, just like they were in 08. And what about all the people that aren't making enough money that keep pulling money out of their house? Cash out refinances and stuff. It's not like California's got all crazy intelligent and decided, well, I'm gonna be frugal now. Oh, I've blown up. So, I don't know what the exact number is on that one. And I knew I wouldn't have enough time to go over all that, so I didn't really go through it. I think that's everything. So, oh, by the way, so September 2024 is when I'm saying that bottom is. It could be a couple months earlier, it could be a couple months later. Last time the trajectory was a lot easier to pick out the exact dollar and the exact amount, I should say date, because nothing was going to slow it down. It was in a total free fall. It's not in a total free fall right now, but the same factor, that is what Californians' median income is the statistic that is the regression towards the mean. And so I had bets with the brightest minds, in my opinion, in the United States of America with regard to flipping houses and everything. And I said, this is exactly what's going to happen, and the when it will start, yada yada. I'm like, hey, you're wrong. I'm all. The herd is going to act the exact same way. Statistically speaking, the herd is going to do the same dang thing. But I could be wrong.
Turn it off. Yeah, just click it off. Otherwise, these are going to clip. So it sounds like, I mean, to me, is you're solely concerned about affordability. Like, there's like, if you look at all the other data out there, like you can, because Jeff, I forgot to mention, the whole reason that we did this is that Jeff asked specifically for like the idea of this meeting, and he wanted me to go over what Bruce Norris went over a couple months ago. Unfortunately, the Norris group didn't get back to me, so I wasn't able to do that. I would have liked to, but when Bruce had this matrix up there, it was talking about like, if this happens, you might see this happen. If this happens, you might see this one. You're not too concerned with all the other things. It's more just not simply, but more directly just affordability.
Can I turn it
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
When I picked July or August of 2008 or 9, I forget which, I think it was 2008, I picked $250,000. He's like, you can't predict the bottom, Nick. And I go, you can predict the bottom, Bruce. And he's like, no, you can't. Yes, I can. And so then he said, so when it happened, it was the exact dollar, $250,000. And the exact month, it's really not the value of the house, it's what people can pay. So property values can still decline below, if you want to call it a decline, that is below $250,000 in a way. Here's what it is the median income drops to $250,000. If property values are still decreasing, people will still pay $250,000 bucks. That will still be the median income. But what will happen is you'll get a bigger and bigger house. That's how that works. So in other words, say, what do you make? $250,000? I'm sorry, not $250,000, whatever the income was at that time to make it 250 grand. Well, if property values continue to decrease, people just lower their price, but people still pay everything that they can afford. They're not, so that, most people, if you look at the herd says, I can afford. The median, the biggest group of individuals with 64% are in that bell-shaped curve. 64% of people, that's where the gravity is. And they could afford 250 grand at a 6% interest rate. So I go, doesn't matter, that's the number. Apparently, I was lucky. but truthfully, as we're talking about with Bruce and everything, I would know, if you really want to understand real estate, his California comeback, there's nothing Bruce has ever done that's bad. And the only reason I have a decent education with regard to real estate and values is because of what he threw out there, and I could evaluate it, and we could disagree or agree, but he's brilliant. If California Comeback was written in '97, and it describes what affordability, mass migration, and interest rate does, and it's perfect. It's perfect.
All right, cool.
And then Kristi, you guys want to come back up here? We'll do some Q&A. us off? I saw Chris first. Yeah, we're gonna hand you a mic.
Nick, you said you brought on an assistant, you're making 8 hour a day, you got to making offers, but you're only taking 10% off of your offer, right? You're lowering your offer by 10% or something like that.
Yeah, 10% of whatever the after repair value is on the house, I'm lowering it, but I'm still removing
Right.
the rehab and all the other
I'm
costs.
just getting at, what is your strategy? Are you flipping? Are you buying and holding? What are your offers catered to? Are you buying and holding? Are you in and out in 3 months? What's your exit strategies? Because you should have 2 or 3.
Well, I only buy and flip to buy and hold. So the JOB is buying and flipping houses. You know, you gotta make, sometimes if you have a rental, sometimes if you're just gonna rent, then it's kind of like, wow, you better keep your other 9 to 5 JOB because it's not gonna give you enough money. So the JOB is flipping houses, and yeah, I want to get out in 3 to 4 months, and I know it's going to be more difficult now. It absolutely is more difficult now than it sells quick, but I only buy and flip so that I can have a portfolio of properties that will pay me what if I break a leg or die, and my family still has income.
So the houses you're looking at are kind of like what Evan was saying. What I'm kind of looking at is not too difficult. You're not getting into the weeds on difficult houses right now. You know what I'm saying?
Right now, so I talk about rehab, heavy rehabs. The value that we have in the marketplace is heavy rehabs. We have very little value to the house that needs paint and carpet. Those people generally aren't going to be saying, don't say yes to me right now. In 2010, that's all we had. I didn't touch anything that needed, $60,000 a new roof or anything. I was doing paint, carpet, and counters. But right now, that's not where it seems like we're getting properties. There's where people are saying yes to us. It's still in the properties that need a lot of repairs. My average rehab is 75 grand easy. Average, I think probably.
But that could still be that could be still a relatively fast flip.
Yeah, I still flip those in 4 months.
Yeah.
I don't really have any $200,000 rooms. I think the most I've ever had is, it was ridiculous. It was like 125, something like that. And we did everything. That 125, roof, everything. There wasn't anything we didn't do.
All right.
This question is for Nick. Can you please go back to 08, 09 and talk about something that didn't work out the way you wanted to, and Mike Tyson came in and put you on the canvas? And what did you learn?
I got my butt kicked.
What did you learn?
I learned not to be too smart. I learned that I was kind of cute. I created the first short sale processing company in California. I owned theshortsaleprocessor.com because I knew property values would decrease, and I didn't want to own anything, but I figured what was logically going to occur is the banks were going to short sell these properties. They weren't going to foreclose on all of them, but they started foreclosing on all of them. Nothing. I did so many different ways to buy houses from 2007 to 2011. Courthouse steps, short sales, REOs. A short sale processing company. Every way that I could try and buy houses. And so that was really painful. That was I had made a lot of money in from 1999, 1998 to 2006, like bucket loads. Like I was like, I'm gonna get plane. Brilliant. And then to sell, I sold all my properties in 05. I moved them to Texas in 06. And then in 07, I was twiddling my thumbs, and I had the short sale processor. In 08, all of a sudden I go, one of the people who were working for me lost his mind, literally. And so I started buying on the courthouse steps. And then, I lived off savings for 5 years. It could have been close to 6. And so that, to rack up everything and go, and really feel like you've got a good head on your shoulders. And I played it very conservative. I moved them to Texas. So to live off savings and watch everything kind of like boom, 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 boom. That was, I'm a better, stronger, faster Nick Manfredi, but that was crazy hard. That was the hardest time of my life.
For sure.
I have a question before you go. I have a question for Kristi. Kristi, you mentioned transitioning some of your ADUs to Furnish Finder. Can you tell us a little bit about what the difference is between like furnishing a short-term rental versus something you put on Furnish Finder? Is it the same or is it?
So actually, I do have an account there, but ultimately I end up getting most, if not all, of my bookings through Airbnb. So I just make sure that I put a 30-day minimum on Airbnb, and I only open up the calendar about 35 days to give a little leeway to get that first month booked. So then once that gets booked for 3 months or so, then I can open the calendar for the next 30 days.
So if somebody was going to start from scratch, would it be like more equipped or like less equipped than or does it not make a difference?
For what?
Like for like amenities and furnishings and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, so basically if you're gonna do Airbnb or Furnish Finders or anybody who's coming to town for a contract job, I do it the exact same way as you would do for any Airbnb you've ever stayed at. So it's completely furnished.